If you could just turn on your video, make sure that I know it's you and not your stunt double. This is a notice of special meeting for the city of Fresno. Today is Thursday, March 11th. The time is now 4:45, and this will be an electronic meeting only, obviously. So with that, clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Arias,
Present.
Councilmember Bredefeld, Councilmember Carbasi,
Here.
Councilmember Maxwell,
Present.
Councilmember Soria, Council Vice President Esparza,
Present.
and President Chavez.
Here.
Okay.
All right, got a quorum officially. I need a motion to approve the agenda, but clerk, you had a modification to the agenda, is that correct?
Yes, I just have something to read into the record. It's for item 1B, as in boy, file ID 21401. Approve agreement with RH Community Builders in the amount of $641,581.50 to provide homeless triage center emergency shelter services to individuals and families impacted by homelessness. The staff would like to change the fiscal impact on the staff report to read as follows. Funds will be available for homeless services through the end of the contract, September 14, 2021.
All right, with that being read into the record, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
All right, motion made by Councilmember Arias, seconded by Vice President Esparza. Roll call.
Councilmember Arias,
Yes.
Councilmember Bredefeld, Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Maxwell,
Aye.
Councilmember Soria, Council Vice President Esparza,
Aye.
President Chavez.
Yes. All right, so now with that approved, we will take up item number 1, and for the benefit of the public, approved settlement agreement with South Fresno Community Alliance. Sponsor of this item is Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Arias, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council. First, let me just say thank you to my colleagues for the willingness to attend this special meeting, and that's on this matter that's timely and important. And also for the record, our council colleague Soria had a family emergency, so she's not present, but she wanted me to share her full support for this agreement. So thank you to the councilwoman. Council members, we're joined with members of the South Fresno Community Alliance who are also in attendance today and who may want to speak to this item. For your reference, there are a group of our neighbors who for years have sought to address the impacts of living next to the new clustered industrial operations in South Fresno. For the past few months, I have facilitated negotiations between our neighbors represented by Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability and the City of Fresno, with our city manager and mayor involved as well. I am pleased to report that the settlement before you that we're asking you to consider is a result of months of difficult but necessary dialogue that is finally a step in the right direction to address some of the past shortcomings. The settlement, in summary, establishes a community benefit fund that will address the lighting, noise, traffic, and poor air quality for the properties and residents surrounding these industrial sites. It also includes funding home improvements through a program similar to one that we have used for the neighborhoods impacted by our airports since the 1990s. The community benefit fund will be funded by a developer that's developing a project there. But the program details and the criteria will be jointly developed with the residents who are part of this agreement. The agreement also calls for water and sewer connections. The city will pursue state, federal, and local resources to offer residents connections to the city and water services that are currently available to the industrial business users in that area. It also outlines a pedestrian safety improvements that will be developed by the city to improve the safety for residents and their children who are in that surrounding area, including the routes to school of Orange Elementary. Traffic and roadway improvements will be developed and implemented as soon as the necessary studies and funding is secure. We will also continue to reevaluate our hiring policies as we are doing in the citywide project labor agreement to ensure that local hire and residents are hired with all these job creation opportunities. And of course, support the electrification of the region so that we continue to improve the air quality in our city and in our Central Valley. Finally, this agreement facilitates the construction of a 400,000 square foot distribution center that we anticipate would generate approximately 1,000 new jobs in South Fresno. The settlement, for the record, does not include any legal fees for Leadership Council or direct financial payments to the residents, because for the residents and Leadership Council, this has never been about suing for the sake of suing, but addressing the real impacts that they have been raising for years. This settlement before us begins to systematically address what should have happened, years ago. It sets the basic guardrails that protect people's health and safety and helps industry businesses be good neighbors. Approval of this agreement would demonstrate that jobs do not have to come at the expense of working people's health and safety. This agreement will further provide evidence that we can create quality jobs that do not harm a neighborhood and do not require millions in taxpayer subsidies. In closing, I want to end with this, council. I do want to sincerely apologize to the neighbors that are technically county residents, but they are city neighbors, and thank them for their hard work. It shouldn't have taken this long to have their voices and concerns addressed, but I appreciate the fact that they have been patient and persistent on addressing the impacts that industry has created, and we are, as a city, will be better off as we rebuild a Fresno for everyone. I also want to thank Leadership Council for their effective advocacy and honest representation on behalf of the residents and the Carnegie family, specifically Leland Carnegie, who stepped forward and has been committed to making things right for everyone involved. With that, Council President, I would ask for a motion to approve the agreement as presented.
All right, would you like to make that motion?
A motion to approve.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice President Esparza. Let me go out to the public. We've got 3 speakers queued up, and then we'll come back for questions from the council, and I think the mayor also wanted to say something. First up will be Ivanka Saunders. Ms. Saunders, you'll have 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ivanka Saunders, policy advocate with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. Thank you, Councilmember Arias, City Manager Esqueda, and Mayor Dyer for working hard on this agreement. While these efforts are actions in the right direction to mitigate impacts on the community of South Central Fresno, it is just the tip of the iceberg of the industrial development concerns that are to come. We must continue to do this hard work and to turn our attention to the bigger challenges that need to be resolved through the South Central specific plan and completing the environmental justice element of the general plan. If we can work on those, then these individual arguments and fights and all this hard work that we've just done on this one project won't have to be so arduous if we take care of the larger picture, which is the South Central specific plan and the environmental justice element of the general plan. But to now, thank you for this hard work.
Thank you. Next up will be Ashley Warner. Ms. Warner, you have the floor.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So a few remarks. Over the last few years, residents of South Central Fresno have experienced the impacts of millions of square feet of warehouse distribution centers being developed in their neighborhoods. These projects have a myriad of life-altering impacts on the quality of housing and residents' health and sense of well-being, and amplify existing environmental burdens borne by neighborhoods, which the California EPA has ranked as the most polluted in the state. To name a few, the passage of thousands of truck and cars in front of residents' homes every day exposes residents to toxic diesel emissions and particulate matter, creates dust plumes that coast residents' homes and trigger asthma, causes homes to rattle with vibration, and puts kids at risk as they walk to Orange Center Elementary School in neighborhoods without sidewalks, stoplights, or crosswalks. Light spill from warehouses operating 24/7 and increased ambient temperatures radiating from warehouse buildings keep residents up at night. And residents who rely on shallow well water and septic tanks have watched as the city has extended water and wastewater service to new warehouses while failing to offer service to their homes just across the street. These impacts are not happenstance or necessary. They are products of the city's zoning practices, which have designated entire neighborhoods, immigrant neighborhoods, and neighborhoods of color for industrial development, and which have failed to provide residents with meaningful opportunities to shape the future of their neighborhoods. This agreement before you tonight is a first step by the city to extend essential protections to South Fresno residents which residents have long requested and rightly deserve. This is also a beginning and an opportunity for Fresno to do things right and differently going forward. In 2019, the council made an explicit commitment to obtain input from communities within and surrounding the area, much of which has already been provided through the South Central Specific Plan process. We hope and urge the city to take that commitment seriously. This agreement doesn't change or respond to that process, and we can no longer accept the reality and look the other way at the fact that these neighborhoods are the most environmentally burdened in the entire state. You have the opportunity and the privilege to right so many wrongs. We look forward to continuing to engage with the city to find solutions, and thank you for your approval of this agreement tonight.
All right, our last speaker is Mr. Leland Carnegie. Mr. Carnegie, you'll have 2 minutes.
Good evening, council members and Council President Chavez. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Of course, my name is Leland Carnegie. I'm with G4 Enterprises, 8570 South Cedar Avenue. My family is the developer noted in the proposed settlement agreement. I'm here to speak in support of the item. So this agreement, along with our separate agreement that we have with South Fresno Community Alliance, is really the product of hundreds of hours of collective work and collaboration between Councilmember Arias, the mayor and his administration, city attorney, leadership council, South Fresno Community Alliance, and my family as the developer and representative for the prospective tenant who intends to operate the facility. This really was an unprecedented effort, and I believe it was an achievement, and it's one that I've seen nothing like in the 16 years that I've been involved in industrial development within the city of Fresno. I'm really incredibly thankful for everyone's time and effort to get this to the point that we're able to have this before you tonight for your consideration. I'd like to make a special acknowledgement and thanks to Councilmember Arias for really leading this effort. If not for his involvement, this proposed agreement and our separate agreement that we have with South Fresno Community Alliance would not have happened. And we would have missed the opportunity to create a significant number of jobs. If this settlement agreement is approved today, it will allow construction on our project to proceed and this prospective tenant that we're working with to move forward with their plans. I think these negotiations and the resulting settlement demonstrate and prove that all stakeholders can come together and resolve these really complex challenges of industrial development in this area. And I'm hopeful that these efforts will carry forward to other projects, as well as the South Central Specific Plan that we hope to be working on soon. We're committed as a family to continue to invest in Fresno, and we look forward to working with the city and the community in the coming months and years. I really appreciate your consideration, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will now close the public comment and bring it back to the council and the mayor. Mayor, you have your hand up. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I would. Thank you. I wanted to express my appreciation to Councilmember Arias as well for taking the lead on this, as well as my city manager, Tommy Escueda, who worked tirelessly on this settlement, as well as the leadership council and Ashley Warner. And I know at times the discussions got somewhat heated, but at the end of the day, we ended up doing what I believe to be the right thing. Also want to say thank you to City Attorney's Office, Doug Sloan, as well as Anthony Taylor, our contract attorney, for working long hours on this settlement. It was not easy, and I think it clearly demonstrates our ability within the administration, within the council, to be able to balance the needs of the community and with the needs to attract jobs within our community that we are so desperate of. So, and then last, I want to say thank you to Leland Carnegie and the Carnegie family for not just your patience on this project and your willingness to be very, very flexible and giving back to the community, but for everything that you and your family have done over the years to give back to our community. And although this settlement doesn't replace the need for the environmental impact study and report that we will be initiating here in my hopes within the next month, it does allow us to move forward on this project. And so we look forward to the work ahead on the environmental impact so that we can continue to move forward on the South Central specific planned project. So with that, big thanks to everybody. And we need the jobs, and this is going to give us upwards of 1,000 jobs, and we certainly need them in our community. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. With that round of thank yous and high fives, I think we have a motion by Councilmember Arias, a second by Vice President Esparza. Clerk, can you do a roll call?
Councilmember Arias,
I'm sorry, Councilmember Chavez.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Bredefeld.
Yeah, I just want to get a better understanding of something. Everyone is saying, we've come together and addressed something that really hasn't happened before, and I think it's important to understand for the public what is different here. What has happened positively that we can set as an example for the future, so that we don't have to have these challenges and allow developments to occur while ignoring impacts in any neighborhood. And clearly South Fresno has been adversely impacted for decades with these kinds of decisions. I think it's important, whether Miguel, you want to say it, or a city manager or a city attorney, what's different here in this agreement that we can look forward to as a model for the future, so we don't have these challenges in the future?
So, Council Member, I appreciate your question, and let me just give some context. In most circumstances, we would have a full environmental and CEQA analysis and a specific plan. Unfortunately, that specific plan and that EIR has been delayed, which didn't allow us to fully vet and identify and mitigate the impacts. So something as simple as a crosswalk or an intersection light was not identified through the EIR study process, so we couldn't move on getting that mitigation. What's dramatically different here is that for the first time, we are indicating that we will pursue all these mitigations that we know are needed, and acknowledging that there are real impacts to people's livelihoods with the change of use next door to them, and are making a commitment, not just ourselves, but the developer, in this case, the Carnegie family, is funding the improvements of those mitigations. So just the way we've done near the flight patterns of an airport, we know that the planes will create more noise, and therefore we help people replace windows with dual pane, installation, things of that nature. For the first time, we are proactively saying, we recognize there's mitigations and impacts to your home, and we're gonna proactively try to work with you to mitigate those now, versus waiting for the full environmental study to be completed, which will still take another year. At the same time, it allows this project to move forward without disruption, so we can do both walk and chew gum, in the sense of create good quality jobs while at the same time mitigating the impacts to the residents simultaneously, versus having to wait another year of a study period to start doing that work. So it is, and we did it without first getting sued. We proactively engage in the settlement. Most settlements occur after litigation and lawsuits are filed. In this case, the Residents Leadership Council in the city have come forward to avoid litigation and reach this resolution before we're having to spend money and time in the courts.
Well, I appreciate that. And is that part of where we have the community benefit fund, and
Correct.
money is funded by the developer to address those impacts?
Absolutely.
And I guess that's the piece that maybe is different. So you're saying on the front end, addressing these things, rather than, we know there are issues, we move forward, there's litigation, now we're all locked down, no jobs are being created, we're not dealing with impact. Is that correct?
You're absolutely correct.
Okay. And so I appreciate that. I also want to say, I've read through the document. I appreciate that those impacts are being addressed. I think neighborhoods for too long, not only in South Fresno, but others, like you mentioned, the airport people out at the airport were certainly impacted by having planes flying over and everything, but clearly South Fresno has been ignored through the decades. And so I appreciate that this is proactively addressing these impacts. I want to acknowledge Ashley Werner and her group and other people who've had to file lawsuits in order to get these kinds of things addressed. So I feel real positive about this, and we can address the impacts to neighborhoods as we continue to obviously develop economically. So good job for everybody.
And Council President, I do want to say a thank you to Talia, who's been losing quite a bit of sleep. She's our in-house counsel, and thank you, Talia. I know there's been a lot of changes, probably some headaches and some migraines, thanks to all of us being in the room in virtually versus in person. A lot of communication gaps that you've addressed. So thank you very much for your help.
Yeah. Now, thank you to everybody. That will conclude the circle of thank yous that we had. And with that, a motion was made by Councilmember Arias, seconded by Vice President Esparza. Roll call.
Councilmember Arias,
Yes.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Kurbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Maxwell,
Aye.
Councilmember Soria is absent, Council Vice President Esparza,
Aye.
and President Chavez.
Yes, a friendly and thank you. Yes. All right. With that, we will now move on to item 2. And for the benefit of the public that's not viewing us on the screen, this is to approve an agreement with RH Community Builders in the amount of $641,581.50 to provide homeless triage center / emergency shelter services to individuals and families impacted by homelessness, with special attention focused on those living on dangerous freeway right-of-ways in the city of Fresno. City Manager, you put this on. You have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Tim, are you available? Are you there? I see you lit up.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry to interrupt, City Manager. I understand that H is going to be also presenting this. Can H, can you raise your hand so I can grab you, please? I can promote you. If you're on a phone, I believe it's *9.
Councilmember, Council President Chavez, can I just
Yes.
make a motion to approve the item?
Sure. Motion made by Councilmember Arias. Do I have a second?
Let me just read the full motion that we have agreed with the mayor on and the city manager. The motion is to approve the item. The council will approve the contract for 3 months with an option for an additional 3 months with council approval. The administration will bring the option on or before the end of the 60 days. The second condition is the administration shall bring to council on or before the April 22nd meeting a partnership agreement with the Fresno City Housing Authority to acquire and renovate additional motels for the temporary homeless shelters. And lastly, the third condition is at the April 22nd council meeting, the administration shall develop and present their plan detailing the strategies and the cost to move unsheltered people from freeways and other encampments to transitional and permanent housing between now and the end of the calendar year. In short, Council President, we're fully supportive of these additional rooms being rented out to continue the off-ramp momentum. But we also want to recognize that there's a need to acquire and renovate additional motels, which we are in complete alignment with the administration, and also a need for us to see the bigger picture on how we're going to address all the folks beyond the highways to get them sheltered. So that's my motion to approve with those conditions, and it has been agreed upon by the mayor. So we're on the same page on this item.
I'll
All right.
second.
Seconded by Vice President Esparza. Mayor, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I do agree with the conditions that have been put on this. When we started Project Off Ramp, we recognized that there was a tremendous number of people that were on our freeways and a tremendous amount of people who are in our neighborhoods. We started with our freeway with Project Off Ramp. 41 had 182 people on that freeway alone. 133 of those took advantage of housing and services, which was 73%, extremely high percentage of people taking it. The next was to move forward with the Golden State area in Southwest Fresno, referred to as the Triangle, and as well as the 180. And I've had interaction with Councilmember Arias and his residents, as well as Councilmember Esparza and 180 and their residents. But we need more rooms. We ran out of rooms and we need to place people somewhere. We have the travel in. Unfortunately, that is still under rehabilitation and is not going to be available for some time. So this is really a short-term measure to be able to lease rooms from over at the Sands Motel. And we'll be starting that lease next week and give us the opportunity. The folks over on Golden State have been noticed already, so they're ready to be relocated. We know how many people that will be. You also know, or maybe have followed, we did a criminal investigation of the encampment over off of 180, specifically between First and Cedar. And there were 70 pounds of marijuana that was seized, some firearms, and a number of other things, methamphetamine. And we wanted to do that before we did the relocation. So this is a methodical approach that we're taking. We need these rooms on the interim, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, but we recognize the long-term need to purchase additional motels. So Councilmember Arias and I are in lockstep with the need to do that, as well as to present a plan for a long-term plan as to how we're going to keep these individuals housed. So
Right,
thank you.
great. Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of speakers, three speakers, I believe. Let me go out to the public and then we'll bring it back for any additional questions. The first speaker is Ms. Brandy News Villegas. Ms. Villegas, you'll have 2 minutes. You can unmute yourself.
Hi. Okay, can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. I know that this has been, for the people out at 180, they have been asking for help for some time, and that is appreciated. I have some concerns and demands for the city to make regarding this project. The project spec says that there are 80 rooms, 80 beds. There are 40 rooms, and 10 are being used by current occupants who have been living there for a long time. There's concerns about doubling people up, which seems to be.
Oh, I think we lost the.
Hi, hello, I'm back. I'm unmuted. Thank you. Sorry, I was unmuted for a moment. Wait. Hello?
You can proceed, ma'am. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. There's concerns with doubling people up because of COVID. With COVID still going, it's unsafe to put people with strangers. People are also might refuse being put in with strangers. We've had concerns about that because of past trauma and, frankly, practicality. I feel like if they house less people than announced, there might be excuse that people will have refused. And also, we don't know how. It seems like Sands is going to be temporary, so where would people go? We ask for transparency in this project as we move forward, and let people know when there's not enough rooms. You're asking for things not to be status quo. I ask that this project be client-centered, which means all of the people who are out there, even though they can't all be helped, but that you focus on them, not merely project-centered, focusing on addressing the needs rather than quickly getting people in and leaving viable people behind. Be honest with the limitations of the project. You can't do everything that you're saying. It needs to be communicated. I ask that you listen to some concerns. If you want to successfully serve people here, realize that what needs to happen. I think that they did start doing signups 2 weeks ago with people. There might be more people when you guys go out there that aren't signed up, and those people aren't any less deserving. We need to be able to help everyone who is out there.
Thank you, Ms. Villegas. We could just conclude.
Yeah, so we had issues with people who weren't signed up. We want to make sure that everyone gets a place. We also want to make sure that people that have concerns about it, that there's time so that they can be able to address their concerns about
Ms.
that.
Villegas.
And may I bring up one more thing?
Sure, please conclude.
Okay, and that also that you listen to the residents, listen to them, and also make sure that the shelters are safe, and listen to the residents for what it will take for the shelter to be safe.
Thank you. Next up will be Ms. Des Martinez. Ms. Martinez, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, thank you. I'm also speaking on the Sands Motel. I know they do say they have 40 rooms available over there. They are going to double up, which would make 80 people. My concern is the city worried about the safety of the individuals during a pandemic, or are they just more worried about getting numbers into motel rooms? I know that they're going to have 2 beds per room and all that stuff, but I want to know how many of the employees at every single shelter that we have here housing the unsheltered or unhoused individuals have received the COVID shot. Do you have COVID shots available at all these shelter sites available right now as these people come in, and if they want them there to receive them right away? Are you allowing 280s and 290s at this motel? Because if you are, you're going to prevent a lot of people that are fleeing domestic violence and or refusing to go and be in the same shelter area as a rapist or a child molester. Is this project only for Dyer's project? Or are we going to allow people to walk in off the street? Or is it going to be referrals only for Dyer's project, which is going to leave a lot of individuals in our alleys and still on our streets? Without affordable housing in Fresno, what will happen to all of the individuals that were putting in a temporary shelter for 90 days? They will be back out on the street. We have housing ready individuals at these motels and they're not being processed because West Care is giving them over to Poverello House. Poverello House doesn't even know that they have them as a client in order to navigate them into housing. This is happening right now in the motels. So I need to ask if everybody's really thinking about the longevity and the permanent housing that needs to be provided for these people that are seeking shelter, because in 90 days it goes really quick, you guys, and they're going to be right back out here on the streets. And I need to know exactly how many people they're trying to put in to the Sands Motel and what kind of security and fencing will they have in order to keep out the criminal activity.
Thank you. Next up will be Miss Lisa Flores. Miss Flores, you'll have 2 minutes.
Yeah, after hearing both the previous speakers, I am greatly concerned. When you said 80, I thought it was 80 rooms. Now it's actually 40 and you're doubling up. And if there's already 10 residents there, that really means that you only have 30 rooms available that you're going to be renting and using. So your impact is not really going to be 80 residents, it's going to be 60. And if you're doubling up on them, how do you deal with making somebody a roommate when they don't want to be a roommate? I think that both in this project and future projects, the city council and the city and the mayor's office and everybody involved with the homeless need to really examine both the short-term housing issue and also the long-term housing issue. I understand getting people off the freeways. I truly, truly do. But, I also don't understand why you want to stick somebody with a roommate and it not be a good situation, and other issues of how do you deal with mental illness in these hotel situations. So I think that from my perspective as a citizen, and you guys are using tax dollars or federal dollars, there needs to be a little bit more work into this before it's actually implemented. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Michael N. Martin. Michael, you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay. Hi. Sorry about the feedback. My concerns are that my boyfriend and I were on the 41. I know you guys moved on to the 180, but there's a lot of us still left on the 41 who were promised the hotels, and for some reason or another, we got left behind. Organization of the volunteers and everybody needs to be more on par. Like, I can't do this. I can't be on. I'm sorry.
Right, you can keep going. You can do okay.
Ms. Martin?
You want to keep talking?
No, I can't.
Luis, can you ask Brandy to maybe give us her name and contact information so we can see if we could help her out?
Horrible.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm with. I can get her contact information. Yes.
Please forward that to our city Fresno department, ma'am. Thank you. All right, that was our last speaker. I'll bring it back to the council. Councilmember Carbasi, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just very briefly. Look, the city has made leaps and bounds in the last 2 months on addressing the issue of homelessness. Yes, there are a lot of complications. We are going to learn a lot along the way, but I think Ms. Martin speaking really explains there are people that want help and we have to have a place for them. So this is a step in the right direction. It's a leap, really. And I appreciate what everyone has been doing. I appreciate what the administration's been doing to help make this happen. And there's more coming. There's a lot more on the way. So I'm ready to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Arias.
Just quickly, Council President, acknowledge that the Fresno Housing Authority, President Prince, Trace Well, Michael Duarte, and Angie are all in the call too, and recognize the fact that they've stepped up and been able to acquire and renovate facilities quickly and help us house the folks. So this is an all hands on deck approach. And we know that we got to address the long-term transition of these facilities and increase more affordability in permanent housing. That's why the administration is coming forward with a much broader plan that we're going to be able to, discuss and engage in. But by no means do we recognize that this is a permanent solution or that we have completely resolved the issue of homelessness. Homelessness will be a permanent challenge. And I can assure you guys, as a homeless committee and the administration with our partners in the Housing Authority, we are all thinking through what happens after the 90 days, what happens after the year, what happens in the second, third, and fourth year. And with the Biden rescue plan, we're all going to have some significant resources to try and address and implement those long-term questions. So thank you all for the conversations and the concerns, but we are working through them as fast as we can while housing people from the winter storms that we're still feeling at the same time.
President Esparza, and then Councilmember Butterfield after.
Yeah, and I'll also acknowledge that again. I mean, we are going in the direction of more structural, housing folks and facilities that we own outright. I think, as it says on paper here, this lease is going to be a temporary solution, a sort of a bridge to a longer term plan. Supporting it today because the mayor has been responsive to my concerns about the safety issues and such down on Tyler Avenue and Highway 180. So Mayor will acknowledge and appreciate your efforts there. It's not an overnight thing, it's ongoing. But if this short-term project will help us get a step closer on 180 and other freeways, that I'll be willing to support it today.
Councilmember Butterfield?
Yeah, before I make a few comments, I'd just like the mayor to expound a little bit about what happened with this area with the arrests and things that were going on criminally. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. If you would share that, please.
Mayor?
Sure. So there was we became aware through a number of residents who were reporting potential criminal activity that was occurring in the encampment there off of 180, and it's faces Tyler Street between First and Cedar. And some of that activity that was reported was drug dealing, sex trafficking. There are a lot of folks coming in and out, literally hundreds of people. So there was a surveillance that was established by the department, and officers went out there over the last 2 weeks. And it wasn't difficult, according to them, to right away see that there was a lot of suspicious activity. And so as a result of their efforts, they prepared search warrants. Those search warrants were served yesterday morning, and they did some follow-up today. And so they ended up recovering one of the tents. I believe it was about 77 pounds or so of marijuana that they were selling to people that were coming in and out of the encampment. They recovered a shotgun as well as a handgun that was stolen. And then they also recovered a slot machine. They had a generator that was hooked up to the area. So there was a lot of different activity that was going on. One of the individuals had methamphetamine. They were selling methamphetamine out of the encampment. So it just goes to show you that there is criminal activity in some of these encampments. It doesn't speak to those who are in those encampments by and large, but there was a handful of people that needed to be arrested, eradicated, removed from that camp. We followed up this morning again with noticing people that they will be given an opportunity to take advantage of housing and services. And that will be happening over the next few weeks as it is on Golden State. And we look forward to returning that area back to the neighborhood. And Councilmember Esparza, thank you for your patience. And I want to publicly say thank you to those people who live in that neighborhood, who have had to wake up every day and to see this a row of tents, and they still do. But it is our promise and our commitment over the next couple of weeks that we will restore that area. So that's really what we had. And I believe there were 4 or 5 arrests that were made here.
Well, I appreciate it, Mayor. It raises a lot of issues that obviously in terms of the complexity of this problem. Before I address that, I want to again publicly acknowledge your efforts, Mayor. You know, we've been battling this since I've been on the council, and I've had colleagues who have been battling it as well. And honestly, you came in here in 2 months and you've cleaned up 41, and others are going to get there. And I want to acknowledge it. This has been the efforts of the mayor who has gotten this done because, you know, he's brought the right people together, and he's had some political juice with the governor, who has been cooperative in allowing these folks to be removed. And, you know, as much as I praise Jerry, I will criticize Jerry on things we differ on. But I just really want to acknowledge the efforts of you, Jerry, to really made a difference. You made a promise, you followed through on it, and I know your commitment is there for 99, for 180. And, you know, my concern about the homeless in terms of a long-term situation, and I've said this before, there are people there who have fallen on hard times, but there are plenty of people there who also are involved in criminal behavior, have drugs and guns and other kinds of things that make it a dangerous situation as well. There's health and safety hazards, and the laws are going to have to change if we're going to really address this on a long-term basis. That's not something we can do. Obviously, it's on the state level in terms of changing some of the laws, because the laws have gone in the other direction, which is to be weakened. I mean, from Prop 47 and 57 and AB 109 and no bail policies and things of this sort. We can continue to do what we're doing, and we will. And it is deriving benefit now on a short-term basis. I'm concerned long-term, and I think we all are, that long-term, you know, will we see people come back on the highways? People who are having drug issues and drug problems, you know, I know from my own work, they've got to be treated. You've got to treat drug addiction, and people who want help can get help, and if they don't want help, there's nothing you're going to do to stop them from their drug addiction. So it's a very complicated, complex problem. We're all fully engaged. I have no doubt this council, and also with the leadership of Jerry, is making a dent and a difference. We see it every day. I see it every day when I drive. And but we've got to also remember that I don't know that we can build enough hotels and rooms that are going to ultimately solve this problem. There's got to be something more that addresses the root causes of these problems, and also doesn't allow people to reside on highways or in the street and things of that sort. But this is definitely moving in the right direction. And again, I tip my hat to you, Jerry, for accomplishing as much as you have. And I know your commitment is there, and I think the residents recognize it as well.
Yeah, if I could, thank you, Gary, I appreciate that. If I could just respond, because I do want to acknowledge the council, because honestly, if not for the actions of the council in the past in being supportive of Project Home Key and the prior administration, as well as the Housing Authority purchasing motels under Project Home Key, and the governor's willingness to give money to local governments, and I know there's going to be more of those dollars forthcoming, it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to do what we're doing today. And so I want to say thank you. And I also want to acknowledge H. Spies, who's really taken the lead on this effort and working with Caltrans and sanitation and CHP. And, you know, there's a lot to maneuver. And so we're appreciative of that. But also our partners, Kingsview, the Poverello House, the Fresno Mission, all of those outreach workers who go out there tirelessly and quietly, day in and day out, to do the noticing, the relocation, and all the service providers that are out there at the motel. So it really is a partnership, and I appreciate you recognizing me. But honestly, it's a team effort on the part of everybody, and building upon the work that has been done in the past. So thank you, guys.
And I do want to also say the same thing. As Councilman Arias and I were meeting with Caltrans and representatives from CHP last year. They are instrumental, as you've outlined. I've seen Caltrans now doing work that I never thought I would see them do, and they're doing it. And I know the CHP is instrumental in following up with the noticing and making sure this happens. It wouldn't happen without all of those folks, as well as the folks you also mentioned, Jerry.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilor Alberto. Councilmember Maxwell?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. Mayor, I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge that, the work that you and your administration have done with Project Off-Ramp, I think negates a popular talking point that I've heard, in our community, historically on the council from the city side, that people experiencing homelessness don't want help. We've, fundamentally demonstrated that that's patently false. How many folks have you housed so far?
Well, just off of 41 alone, there was 133, and there's additional people that have been housed off of different locations, but specifically to 41. So again, 73%, still 27% of the people who have chosen not to be housed or take advantage of services. But you're absolutely correct that that's a far greater number than we've experienced in the past.
Yeah, so, like everyone else, I do want to commend you and your team for the efforts that you made. And I want to keep this in mind as we move forward with conversations about homelessness and homeless task force and, what that outreach looks like going forward. And remembering that the people experiencing homelessness, they do want help. Sometimes we just have to do a better job of making sure they know that there's resources available and making sure that there are resources available for those folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Maxwell. Mayor, I also want to thank you, and I'll close it up. I'll be brief. I just want to make sure that I understand what we're doing today. So the way I understand it, this is an agreement with this organization company to get us 3 months worth of housing, so to speak, with another option for another 3 months, depending on the need. That, I think, addresses the short-term solution. The question I have is for the long-term solution. And I guess it goes to the question that my colleague, Councilmember Maxwell, asked as far as data and numbers. What are we seeing as far as the trend? I know you mentioned 137 folks that have been approached and helped, but 27% of those opted for no service. So what are the numbers that we're projecting for the next 2-3 months? And how does that align with what we're doing today with regards to being able to house those individuals and provide services for them?
Well, I can tell you that if we continue with about the same percentage, 73%, 75% of the people taking advantage of, we're going to fill up the Sands motel here over the next 3 weeks. I would imagine that's going to happen. And then we're going to, during that time, we will have the opportunity to have rehabilitated the travel inn, and then we can utilize that as we go forward. But there is definitely a need for us to purchase a number of other motels. And that isn't going to be the long-term solution because we have to have an exit strategy. And we do have an exit strategy, but it requires more housing, more alternative housing in Fresno. That includes tiny homes. We're working with a number of developers and builders and people who are, feverishly working towards that end. And then at some point, the conversion of the motels that are being used today for temporary shelter to convert those to affordable housing as well, whether that's on Motel Drive or any other place. So fortunately, we have money coming from the Biden, the American Rescue Plan. And we also have some dollars that are going to be coming from the state on another project, Home Key. So, it's going to be very strategic. We will have a good plan. That plan is going to have to be flexible because the population has grown tremendously, homeless population, over the last 2 years. Between 2019 and 20, the point in time count was a 69% increase. And that was pre-pandemic. So the plan is going to involve a lot of housing, a lot of motels, a lot of services, a lot of outreach, and it's going to take a long period of time to address.
No, I appreciate that, Mayor. And along those lines, I just wanted to make sure that, we're all clear on what we're trying to accomplish here. And, for the benefit of the public, as you know, that's probably one of the most common phone calls we get to our offices, right? Encampments and folks that are not just on the freeway, but on alleyways, abandoned homes. They start fires. It becomes a public health and safety issue out in our communities. And so I think this is going to get us to where we need to get to in the next couple of months. I know there's a lot of discussion left on the long-term solution. I think you flagged a couple of them, tiny homes, maybe purchasing additional hotels, but at the end of the day, it's going to be about investments. I'm looking forward to that conversation. I just want to make sure that, we understand what we're trying to accomplish here. And I think you guys explained it well. So with that, I will wrap up. There was a motion made by Councilmember Arias, seconded by Vice President Esparza. Clerk, could you do roll call?
Councilmember Arias,
Yes, thank you, President Prince.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Maxwell,
Aye.
Councilmember Soria is absent. Council Vice President Esparza,
Aye.
President Chavez,
Yes.
6-0.
All right. With that, council, the time is 5:36. We will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.
Thanks.